But first, there's only really one word that can describe what's happening to our energy system right now, and that's madness. And it's not as if we haven't been warned. In Europe, they're facing crippling power shortages and massive price hikes by making themselves dependent on Russian gas, by decommissioning 24/7 baseload power because it comes from fossil fuels, in favour of renewables that only work when it's windy or the sun's up. In June this year, here in Australia, we narrowly missed widespread blackouts and had our own energy market suspended because of breakdowns at ageing coal plants, a shortage of gas, and too many cloudy, windless days. And even the new government admits that we need up to $80 billion of new investment in transmission, so poles and wires, to cope with a decentralised power grid based on renewables that only generate power on average 30% of the time. And $20 billion of that 80, well, you're going to have to pay it as taxpayers. The rest, of course, you'll pay as consumers, and they'll load it into your already increasing power bill. On top of losing the New South Wales Liddell power station next year and the Eraring station in 2025, that's around 40% of New South Wales generation gone in just 3 years. Today, AGL, of course, announced the closure of the giant Loy Yang power station 10 years early, so set to close now in 2035. And by then, Victoria will have lost upwards of 70% of its current generation. Plus, the Queensland government's just announced it'll close all of its coal-fired power stations by 2035, as well as wiping out 70% of that generation. They say they'll be renewable. Let's see. Anastasia Palaszczuk says, let's bring in the pumped hydro. I mean, when are the dams being built? And these pumped hydro schemes she's been spruiking, they don't even have detailed environmental or engineering investigation. Now, good luck with that. Look at the Snowy 2.0 scheme announced by Malcolm Turnbull. Lots of fanfare 5 years ago. It's already 2 years behind schedule, and billions and billions, I saw an estimate today, 15 billion over budget. But there's more. As well as warning of years of rising power prices, the Australian Energy Regulator has just said, and I quote, if retirements of coal-fired power stations accelerate, or if there are delays in enabling reform and investment, there is a growing risk of reliability gaps and a disorderly transition. Now, that's the official way of saying that if we get out of fossil fuels even faster than expected, there'll be mass blackouts. And that statement from the Energy Regulator was before today's announcements of even faster closures of entities looking to cash in on subsidies for renewables and to avoid the cost of maintaining old power stations and appease green activists, or in the case of AGL, Mike Cannon-Brookes, now their big activist shareholder. You understand, I know you do, modern life simply can't go on without electricity. We're deliberately making our power supply much more expensive, much less reliable, because we've convinced ourselves that climate change has made storms and floods and fires and droughts so much more worse. And we want to cut emissions too, that as well. But on those storms and fires and floods, if that's your view, if that's your view, how are we going to cope with the inevitable storms and floods and fires and droughts into the future if we've impoverished ourselves in the process of trying to make them less severe? There's only one proven way to get emissions down and keep the lights on, and that's to move fast to nuclear power. Yet nuclear power is absent from our grid. Not just that, it's illegal in this country. And no political party will commit to lift the ban. Libs say they want to talk about it, National Party too, but the only MP in the parliament who's actually doing something about it, Matt Canavan, with his pro-nuclear bill into the parliament this week. I'll speak to Matt shortly, but honestly, this makes you weep. All the while China, big emitter as it is, and Russia, number 4 in the world, they're only getting more and more aggressive.